VCT Masters tournament has concluded, and now it's time to look back and look at which players had the best stats. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, and today we're doing a video looking at the stat leaders at the VCT Madrid tournament, looking at which players performed the best, at least by looking at the stats. So this is the board I've put together. As you can see, there is a lot on this board. There's been some discussion in my comment section about how I include stats in my videos. Personally, I like including the stats. I think it's fun to just look back at which players were good in this category, were good in that category, which player was struggling here, which player was doing good here. I think it's fun, and I think it's also a decent way to gauge how players have done. So I figured I would look through VLR and Liquipedia and put together this board of all the stat leaders, some stats good, some stats not so good, and just talk about all the players that are on this board and just kind of nerd out about stats. So if you like stats, this is the video for you, but if you just want to go look at these on VLR, go right ahead. But if you want to hear me yap about it, here we are. Stick around if that sounds interesting to you. So, starting with ACS, which is the average combat score. So, this is how, Valorant does their rankings within your own ranked games. Zekken was the clear leader with a 259.5 ACS. Can close second with exactly 252 average combat score. This is, of course, per map. And the Narrate, even though Carmine Corp didn't get into playoffs, still finished in third in ACS, going 245.7. So Zekken being pretty obvious person here, but maybe you would have expected Narrate to be second instead of Can, but that is not the case. But that does kind of make sense because Can is basically the main lifeblood of that EDG team. Moving on to VLR rating, this is kind of a weird stat. Basically, VLR takes kills, deaths, survival, and trades, all this other stuff, puts them into a blender, mixes it up, and spits out a rating number to basically just measure how impactful each player is. So it's kind of a weird stat, and no one really exactly knows everything about it, aside from the people that, of course, made the algorithm, but it is a decent way to gauge how good players did throughout the tournament. Narrate did lead in that category with a 1.27 less the first time he shows up on the board, not the last though. He was second with a 1.21, and Tui's with a 1.18, so two loud players in the top three there. Second, surprisingly, not in the top three for this category, he was number 6. He did have a 1.13, and close behind him was John QT, his IGL, with a 1.12. So while there were no Sentinels players in that category, there were 3 in terms of kills. And this should be no surprise, Sentinels went all the way to the grand final and of course won it, so of course their players are going to have the most kills. But we can see how impressive Zekken was on that duelist role, getting 381 kills, which is 67 more than Tens, who is in second place with 314. John QT being a close third with 293. So that just goes to show you how impressive Zekken was and how good Tens was as well. These two players playing off of each other extremely well. Both players show up quite a bit on this board, as you can see, and they were an incredible duo that got the job done at VCT Masters Madrid, and John QT also being incredibly impactful, being that fragging IGL that seems to be a pretty good meta now. He is a perfect example of an IGL that can be extremely good in the mid round and calling and with strategies, but also very, very good when it comes to his own individual performance. The funny thing is, he said that he didn't think he played to his best, so if that's not even the best that we can get out of John QT, wow, everybody else in Americas and the world should be very scared of this man. Moving on to KD ratio, which is debatable how important it is in Valorant. Duelist players are meant to get kills, but because they're putting themselves in those high-risk situations, they're usually dying. So it is kind of debatable which role should have the best KD ratio. I've gotten comments saying that the initiator should have the best KD ratio, whereas with duelists it doesn't matter as much because they're getting trades, so as long as they're getting trades and getting kills when they die, it's okay. But I did make season preview videos for every single team that was in the Americas, Pacific, and EMEA last year, and a common trend was the duelist player on each team usually having the highest KD ratio. But that was not the case at Madrid because Les leads this category with a 1.31, which, in case you didn't know, is very good. So Les being on that Viper role, still being very effective with getting a lot of kills and being able to stay alive. Same with his teammate, who was also a Smokes player, in Tui's. He had a 1.29, and then the only semi-duelist player, because Narrate is a flex player who plays Initiator as well, he had a 1.26, so Narrate finding himself in the top 3 of one of these stats yet again. Again, a bit surprising that Zekken isn't here, but because he played so much, his number definitely evened out a bit in terms of his KD ratio. He is number 5, though, in this category. He just didn't qualify for this board. But we do see him yet again in the first kills category. Zekken leads this category by a large margin, having 42 more than Something, who is in second place with 54. Texture is tied with him as well. So Zekken leading that category by a large margin, 96 first kills, very impressive work. In terms of average kills per map, we have Miniboo leading the charge, tied with Zekken, 19 for both of them. Narrate was a close third with an 18.8. So all three of those players playing a lot of Duelist and being very effective in getting a lot of kills. Average damage per round, we would see some familiar faces in here as well. Zekken, yet again, leading the charge with a 1.67.1 damage per round. Can shows up again with a 164.3, and Narrate also in third. Again, he had a lot of third places in these categories, 163.7. Moving on to assists, we see 10 show up yet again, absolutely leading the charge in this category with 226. That is 54 more than second place in Zelsis, who got 172. And we see yet another Sentinel sweep in the top three with Saucy having 169. Again, it makes sense that we see three Sentinels players here. They made it to Grand Finals, they won the whole thing. But Tens just having that many assists is very impressive. Some of these assists is him getting damage and then dying, and then Zekken or other players pick it up. But some of it is also getting assists through flashes and other utility. So he has been very good in switching to that controller initiator flex role. I think it's fit in perfectly for him right now. He's really good on the Omen. He's really good on the KO. And I love seeing what Tens has done so far. It was really great to see him do well at this international, his first international since 2021. And finally, people can stop saying he's washed, because he's proven he isn't. Even if he's not the same player that was easily the best player in 2021, it doesn't matter as long as he performs really solid in the role that he is given. He's fine. Moving on to headshot percentage, so of course, percentage of shots that you shot that hit the head. We see Life of FPX showing up for the first and only time on this board. He had a 39% headshot percentage. That is very good, actually. He definitely is FPX's best player, and he's very good in that headshot. Granted, these numbers are probably pretty high because his team only played 2 matches and lost all the maps. So since it's a small sample size, the stats are a bit inflated for him, but then we also see Mind Freak with a 37%. I did see some discussion about Mind Freak maybe not being very good at Madrid, and maybe that being one of the main reasons why Paper X lost. But hey, at least he was able to shoot the head a lot. We also see Ryan show up for the first and only time with a 36% headshot percentage. Him, of course, being on Team Heretics, so we have 2 Heretics players on the board with him, and then Miniboo at kills per map. Now talking about clutches won, so the amount of clutches that each player won when they are put in that situation. We have John QT leading the charge with quite a crazy stat, actually 14 clutches, so the most in all of the tournament, but that was out of 80 potential clutch situations, which is 52 more potential clutch situations than the second place in Lakia, who had 9 out of 28. Tens being third in this category, being good in the clutch as well, going 8 out of 30. So John QT being in that many situations, this could be situations where he was just the last person alive and it was like a 1v5 or something and he was just saving. So in terms of potential situations, it isn't exactly a perfect stat, but he still had the most clutches won out of the entire tournament. But Lakia and Tens were 2 players that were very good in those situations as well. Moving on to K-Max, which is maximum amount of kills that these players got in a map. Zekken leads the charge with 32 kills. I'm honestly a bit surprised it wasn't more than that. 32 is impressive, but I feel like in past tournaments we've maybe seen a bit higher than that. I can maybe go look at past tournaments to actually know that, because I'm just saying that off the top. But even so, 32 kills is a very good number for Zekken. Close second though, Can shows up yet again with 30. And Martin, first and only time on the board, he had 29 for Carmine Corp. And now moving on to the not so good stats. So we only have 2 stats on the board here that are negative, which are first deaths and deaths total. In terms of first deaths, we see Zekken leading in that category, having 81 first deaths, which honestly doesn't take away too much from his play, because he was the Raze. He would just satchel in and get like 2 or 3 kills and then die. But sometimes that aggressive play got him in situations where he didn't get a kill and just died. So he does end up as first on this board, but from his play style, from the characters he's playing as well, it makes sense. Monyet is in second, of course, playing Raze as well. He had 64 first deaths, and another Paper X player shows up, 42 for something. Monyet definitely had some bad times throughout this tournament, and he did lead his team in first deaths, so definitely not starting rounds as well as you would hope. I will give him the benefit of the doubt that I gave Zekken, saying that, playing the characters that he's playing that Raze, it's bound to happen. Monyet did play better as the tournament went along, so maybe in the next international we don't see him having the same stat, but we'll see. And for our last category, we see 2 more Sentinels players show up. Zekken with 314 and Tens with 300, and Monyet unfortunately shows up again with 289. So of course, Zekken and Tens being players that went all the way to the grand final, as I've said with other stats, it's bound that this number is higher than most. Second did get a lot more kills than deaths, 10s, only 14 more kills than deaths. So still solid numbers overall, and kills and deaths aren't everything, but it is fun to look at the stats. At least it's fun for me. So that is all the stats on the board. This is just a really board of madness I've put together here. If you guys want to see more stat-centric kind of videos, I'm definitely down to make some. I do find it kind of fun. Don't know how well this video is going to do in comparison with my other videos, but I just wanted to put together. I find it fun, and if you enjoyed it, please click like. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.